guys, the Comics Kid 2099 here. Usually around here, I talk about movies and TV shows and comic books that did something that I didn't care for, and I talk about a way that I feel like it could have been improved. I very rarely do a pre-writing fix on something. I did do a video talking about how I would have kind of capped off my own ideal version of the X-Men film universe with a New Mutants movie, which at the time had not yet come out, but most of the time I am talking about something that has already come out. But a little while back, on Reddit, on the subreddit for Fixing Movies, somebody asked the question, what would your ideal version of the third Spider-Man movie from the Marvel Cinematic Universe look like? And I thought about this a little bit, and there are a lot of rumors. As of me filming this video, there are rumors that we might have Andrew Garfield come back, we might have Tobey Maguire come back, Alfred Molina and Jamie Foxx might be reprising the roles that they played, and a lot of that makes it sound like this is going to be a live-action Spider-Verse movie. And while I really like the animated Spider-Verse movie, I have absolutely no interest in seeing a live-action version of that in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I don't want that. I would like to see this version of Spider-Man fully realized as something a little closer to the Spider-Man that I want to see before I see him teaming up with all of these other versions of Spider-Man. What I mean by that is that Tom Holland has been in, I think, 5 movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe so far, and it seems like even as of Far From Home, he's still hung up on his relationship with his mentor, Tony Stark. And I really want to see him get past that and be a normal, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man without him meeting other potential mentor figures that he can be sad about when they go away. I really do not want him to be looking up to other Spider-Men who have been doing this longer than him, and he can look at what they're doing and then try to mimic that. I don't want that. I cannot put into words how little interest I have in that. So my ideal version of Spider-Man Homeless, or whatever it is that they're calling it now, they've announced it, but I can't remember. It would have Peter is on the run, as of, spoilers for Far From Home, by the way, as of the post-credits scene in Far From Home, where Mysterio said that Peter killed him, and J. Jonah Jameson is calling Spider-Man a murderer on the news, and his identity has been revealed to the world. So now Peter is out there living in a crappy apartment under an assumed name. He's calling himself Ben Reilly. He's living on freelance photography, and then you would have Kraven the Hunter, who ideally I would love to have Karl Urban play Kraven the Hunter. I know he played the Executioner in Thor Ragnarok, but we also had the lady who played Mariah Dillard in the Luke Cage series. She was in Civil War playing a different character, and as far as I know, the Netflix shows are supposed to be canon with the MCU movies. So I think we can make it work as long as Kraven has hair and a big giant mustache. I don't think that he would look too much like the Executioner. So I think it would be fine if you had Karl Urban playing Kraven the Hunter. And my version of Kraven here for this movie, he would basically be like an evil version of Steve Irwin, the crocodile hunter from the early 2000s, late 90s. He would have a very charming public persona that he uses when he's doing his TV show, and then he sees, okay, this guy Spider-Man is a murderer. He murdered the hero Mysterio, and the Avengers aren't able to find him, or maybe they don't want to, so I am going to hunt the most dangerous game. I am going to hunt Spider-Man and capture him, and then make a name for myself, even more than what I already have. And this is kind of similar to the early issues of the Ultimate Spider-Man comic book series from the early 2000s, except that ended up playing out as a joke because we were teasing Kraven for a few issues, and then when he shows up, Spider-Man knocks him out in one punch because he doesn't have any powers. He's just a TV celebrity, and he's no match for someone with superhuman strength. So I would not do that. I would either say he's a really competent fighter, like Batman-level fighter, and he's able to, with just his wits and really good skills, he's able to wrestle lions and alligators by himself, or he has genetically augmented himself. Either way is fine, but I would not want this to play out as a joke. But Kraven is not an idiot. He wants to have some backup when he goes after this guy who murdered Mysterio, at least according to the news. So he forms the Sinister Six. And you could bring in the Scorpion from Spider-Man Homecoming. He's still really mad at Peter. You could bring in the Shocker. I believe there's still one Shocker who didn't die in Spider-Man Homecoming. You could have him. And then if you want to tease and wink wink at the audience, you can have Alfred Molina and Jamie Foxx playing this universe's version of Dr. Octopus Octopus and Electro, respectively. I wouldn't do that. I don't want to see any hint of a multiverse here, but if you do want to kind of play around with it and kind of nod at the audience, then you can bring those actors back. I think it'd be really fun to actually focus a little bit on these villains. Get to show them all hanging out and bonding with each other. Just because they're hunting down Spider-Man doesn't mean that all of these guys are 100% evil. And maybe Kraven, in his investigation and trying to find Spider-Man, he might come to the understanding that, yeah, Peter was framed, but I don't care. I still want to make a name for myself. So he can be your unrepentant bad guy. And Matt Gargan, who was a weapons dealer, I think, in the Spider-Man Homecoming, he can be still really mad at Spider-Man and he wants revenge. But then some of these other guys, they're probably just here because they're getting paid to hunt down a murderer who's still on the loose. And so there was a mini-series in the Ultimate Universe called Ultimate 6 a really long time ago. It was 5 villains who were all or 4 villains under the leadership of Norman Osborn, and we spent a lot of time with those villains, and then it turns out their 6th recruit was going to be Spider-Man himself. And we spent quite a bit of time with these guys hanging out in the Kingpin's safe house while he was on the run in Mexico or wherever. So I would love to see a little bit more screen time with the villains here than what you usually get in an MCU movie. When you go back to like the 1989 Batman movie, it feels like every other scene is a Joker scene, and then you don't get a whole lot of Batman. And what I liked when the Marvel Cinematic Universe was first getting started was that we were focusing a lot more on the heroes than we were on the villains, at least compared to that Batman movie. But I feel like a lot of people's complaints about the MCU movies is that up until fairly recently, the villains have been the weakest part of these movies. And I think it would be cool if you could give a little bit more screen time to the villains here than you normally do. But eventually, they're able to draw Peter out, maybe by endangering innocent civilians. Peter comes out to fight them, and then something happens. He fights them all, and I've only mentioned 5 villains, I think. There was Electro, Doc Ock, Shocker, then there was, who else did I say? Kraven, and I feel like there's one more, Scorpion. So only 5 that I mentioned, so you could find someone else that joins them, maybe the Rhino, I don't know. But you could have a Sinister Six. I don't think that this would be too many villains for one movie, as long as the most important villain is Kraven. All the others can be there, and they can be, chatting with each other, be buddies with each other, but you wouldn't have 6 opposing motivations here. You would really just have 5 guys working for the main villain. Kind of like how Spider-Man Homecoming had quite a few villains in it. You had a Prowler who was in a couple of scenes, you had the Thinker, you had a couple of Shockers, and you had the Vulture, but they were all kind of subservient to one not subservient, that's not the right word, but everything, there was a hierarchy there. So do something like that, and I don't think that 6 villains would be too much. Also, since there have been rumors that Charlie Cox is going to be in the movie, what I have wanted to see ever since they first mentioned that is Charlie Cox is Peter's lawyer, and he's trying to help him clear his name. And so Charlie Cox would be meeting with Peter on the down low, saying, hey, I'm getting close, but you may still want to kind of stay undercover for a little while longer. And then Peter says, hey, thank you for everything you're doing, but can I trust you not to go and tell them where I am? And then I'm really proud of this line. I posted this on Reddit. Charlie Cox would say, Peter, please, I never even saw you. And it's kind of funny, because Daredevil's blind. I think that would be great. I really would love to see the Netflix characters be reintegrated into the movie universe here. I do not want to see them recast these characters. I feel like even though there was this big hole to do between Ike Perlmutter and Kevin Feige, and that's why the Netflix shows didn't really reference the stuff in the movies, I get that, but that's no longer an issue, so I think you could bring these characters back and you could have them interact with the movie characters. I think that would be really cool, and this is the ideal way that I would want to see Daredevil make his way into these movies. And then you could even have some way of having the Kingpin fight Spider-Man later on, because Spider-Man is kind of sort of a nemesis of the Kingpin, just like Daredevil is. Although maybe that wouldn't work, I don't know. But anyway, that is about what I would want to see. I know this is a bare bones plot. There's not a whole lot of detail here, but I think this would be a lot of fun. I am not the biggest fan of Brian Michael Bendis' writing, but a lot of what I talked about here is kind of inspired by a lot of what he did in Ultimate Spider-Man. Having Kraven trying to hunt down Spider-Man, who he believes is a menace, and then having the Ultimate 6 storyline kind of be a basis of this. I think that could work. I think it would be a lot of fun to see that. So that is what I would like like to see in Spider-Man Homeless. What about you guys? What would you like to see? Do you like this idea, or is this just you don't like it? Let me know in the comments, and I will see you guys in another week where I will be talking about some other stuff. In the meantime, you guys have a great rest of the day. Catch you later.